orange.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of the House in Fata Morgana. Woo! Today we're gonna do a little bit of bada bing, bada boom, if you know what I mean.
Should I be right back?
How do we know if it's the bada bing and the bada boom?
That means absolutely nothing, Master, please.
How do you know if it's the bada bing and the bada boom?
Bada bing.
It's because
Hey,
He can sense.
Orange, are you saying you don't enjoy yourself a good gabagoo?
Nah, I'm more of a pasta fazoo kind of guy.
oh, good God.
Speaking Italian.
Alright, I'm gonna make the game visible now. There he is! There's my boy!
What's it?
I'm gonna make the game visible for you guys, too. Alrighty then. I guess we've already seen these ellipses, so let's get moving, yeah.
We can skip right past these ellipses.
All right, I wonder what his name is.
Hold on a sec.
Yeah?
Okay, now I've got it up.
Okay, now everybody needs that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, I was not ready to be British. Let me get this. His name was Jacopo. And though he dressed in such fine attire, I sincerely doubted he understood how splendid the furnishings left in the mansion truly were. I'm a faithful servant of this house, and I would not, for the life of me, dare speak ill of my master. However, this is a time long past. I imagine God would be so kind as to turn a blind eye to a little bit of honesty. I was not terribly fond of my master back then. He had wavy hair the color of over-dried tea leaves, a piercing gaze, an arrogant smile, and he wore a hat that made him look rather haughty. He put his trust only in money, renown, and rank. He loved only the iron and steel that had revolutionized so many industries. He had not the slightest bit of love or care for other people. At the very least, that is what I believed at the time. Take a look around the room, Master. Jacopo had remodeled it into a recreation area. The billiards table sat in the center of the room, and the downward-facing light hanging from the ceiling were special made. The light shone upon the dark green stand like a stage. Cigars and bourbon lined the glass cages installed in the place of bookshelves. The cases were always fully stocked, their contents available to partake of readily. At that particular moment, as he had many times before, Jacopo had invited several friends and acquaintances, and they were entertaining themselves. His wealthy, high-ranking acquaintances had a variety of hair colors, from polished brash to the brown of baby robin to the color of sunburnt wheat. There was also much greater variation of skin tone compared to the visitors and residents of the previous eras. But that was hardly any surprise, for the mansion sat upon land inhabited largely by immigrants, the New World.
What's the matter? What are you looking at?
Nothing. I just thought I heard someone say my name.
Ain't no one there, unless you've seen a ghost.
I don't believe in such nonsense.
It's an old house with a long history. Wouldn't be surprised if it had a ghost or two.
But if the place is gonna be haunted, I'd take a princess or a bloody broad any day.
A princess, eh? When she showed up, you'd have your way with this ghost lady, am I right? Calling me impressed, son. You jump up on, then she don't even got any to jump.
Come on now, that's hardly fair. How much you can even do with a ghost?
My god, are you men or children? This is my house, and I would rather you didn't talk about it like that.
Shut the blather of cocoa drunks. Pretend you didn't hear nothing.
For the love of God. In any event, whatever happened to that printer you invested in? I haven't heard their name come up in some time.
Can we please just avoid that topic? It's been quite the headache for me. I thought it'd pay off, but...
It always sounded sketchy to me. I'd recommend you pull out unless you want to find yourself with nothing left but a nice fat pile of debt.
Could have mentioned that beforehand. It's killing me.
The men's deep voices resonated in the cloudy room. As they imbibed alcohol and puffed on their cigars, they conversed mostly about business and money. Jacopo and the rest of the men were a breed known as investors. You might also call them tacticians. They survived on information attained before anyone else by making swift decisions and having foresight. Though instead of flesh and bone, their soldiers were made of ink and paper. To an outsider, this meeting might appear to be a congregation of friends, but in reality, they were observing one another, gathering information, and anything else they could use to get ahead. At times, money and information were exchanged directly. And when they were no longer of financial value to one another, their relationship would pop like a bubble and dissipate into nothing.
But you know, Jacopo, you can't be sure this railroad you're so passionate about is gonna bear fruit neither. You don't even know if it'll get finished.
And even if they do connect the tracks, will it really be in any shape for people to ride? It's a pipe dream. This transcontinental railroad of yours.
Jacopo went silent, but I'm certain this is what was going through his head.
You're a bunch of damned imbeciles if you can't see that the entire country's put their weight behind this endeavor. This is why you have so much trouble making even a few thousand.
At the time, a great railway was being built across the breadth of the continent. Construction was spearheaded by two large rail companies in competition for both prestige and the biggest share of this massive national enterprise. The Union Pacific Railroad Company started building from the east, and the Central Pacific Railroad Company from the west. But government bonds alone were not enough to finance the massive undertaking.
By the way, there have been some less than pleasant reports about workers dying on the job for the company you chose, Central Pacific.
You mean how they're using explosive to blast through the mountains? Making quite a bang they are.
But if this gets to be much bigger of a fix, they're not going to be able to continue construction. You should at least put your money in the more sure bet of the two, the Union Pacific.
It'll cost you to hire replacement workers, and if they keep kicking the bucket, you're gonna have trouble finding more.
My goodness. And here I thought you all had spines. You think we're gonna run out of workers just because a few ate it? Ha! There are so many we don't even know what to do with them all. There's not a chance that well will dry up. And if by some chance it does, all we have to do is buy up a ship full of blacks or yellows. You won't get anywhere if you spend your time worrying about a few measly laborers. This is an endeavor backed by the entire nation. Their deaths are honorable in service of their country. The biggest loss is not of people's lives, but of time. The longer a project takes, the more money it costs and the less profit we make. What we seek is rapid progress, even if the methods to obtain it are messy or deadly.
Ugh.
The other men of the room chuckled uncomfortably at Jacopo's distasteful choice of words. Do you agree with his way of thinking, Master? Perhaps he does have a point, in that great sacrifice is necessary to accomplish great things. And it is true that tragedy often lies in the shadows of splendor of times long past. Furthermore, the way people see the world change with the times, so I hesitate to criticize him too severely. Now, as I'm sure you've already picked up on, he was an investor who had put his money into a railroad company. He also possessed several crude oil refineries, riding on the world's second wave of industrial development. The mansion too bustled with life in a way it had never had before. Dozens of maids, including me, gardeners, chefs, sculptors, artists. At times, we even had riders coming in and out of the house. There was rarely a moment of silence. However, I was not terribly fond of the hustle and bustle personally. But please do not get me wrong. I'm hardly opposed to the mansion being cheerful. It was just, how should I put it? The splendor of the time seemed superficial, heartless. It was as though everyone was being rushed along by some unknown invisible force. And part of it I expect, caused by the growing divide between those standing at the top and sitting at the bottom. Or perhaps the mansion was simply taking after its master.
There's no time to waste. Everything is resting upon the success of this project. Whatever it takes, I will ensure it happens. I need more money and more power.
Suddenly a restrained knock on the door stopped his train of thought. From beyond the door came a woman's voice, gentle as a soft spring breeze. Pardon me, I've made some tea. May I offer anyone a cup? When the door opened, in it stood a beautiful woman with pure white hair. It was indeed her. Are you surprised? Or did you anticipate her appearance? Though she was not the same age and dressed differently, the white-haired girl, whom you saw fall into the hands of misfortune in the era of roses and the era of the beast, was also present in this era of innovation. Furthermore, she was Jacopo's wife.
Tea? I don't remember asking for that. When were you asked to make it?
I wasn't, but I had these leaves with the most wonderful aroma, and I thought you might enjoy.
Shut your trap and know your place. What do you think we have all these for?
Hey now! No need to treat your lady like that. You're just trying to be courteous.
These are my personal affairs. Please keep your comments to yourself.
His friends were unsure of how to react, but ultimately nobody stepped up to stop Jacopo. They merely shrugged, tossing glances at one another. Jacopo stomped over to the white-haired girl. And then he grabbed her by the arm and dragged her from the den.
The hell do you think you're doing? I've told you time and again to stay away from that room unless absolutely necessary.
I'm sorry. But, I made tea and...
Shut up about the tea already. You think we're having tea parties in there like a bunch of prissy nobles?
I'm sorry.
If you really feel so bad, don't go in there in the first place. Get the hell back to your room.
I meant no harm. It's just, I'm your wife. I thought it would be nice if I could do something.
Like I've told you, that's not your job. Don't show yourself in front of the other men. I have nothing else to say to you. Got it? Now scram. Sakes alive. First them, now you. It's driving me up the wall. What is it? I told you to get out of here.
Right, but,
What?
when will you spend time with me next? It has been some time since we last went out together. But we don't even have to go out. Just having dinner together would.
How many times are you gonna make me repeat myself, you worthless tramp? Are those ears only for show? Go back to your goddamn room!
Apologies. Looking utterly downtrodden, the white-haired girl made her departure. Such a piteous sight she was. As he watched her go, Jacopo merely snorted. Just thinking about the way he behaved then angers me. I have little fondness for men who do not treat their spouses with respect. So as you can see, the white-haired girl was hardly in a joyous situation. She was devoted to Jacopo and tried to do whatever she could for him. But he not only brushed her aside, he did so in an insulting, deliberately hurtful manner. And they were far from a picturesque partners. Do you wonder then, Master, why she married him? The answer to that question will come to light in time. For now, let us follow her. Looking down dejectedly at the undrunken tea, the white-haired girl walked alone down the corridor. Though its calming scent filled the air, there was nobody around to have their heart warmed by it. Nor was there anyone to alleviate her loneliness. Despite being the master's wife, the maids who crossed her path in the halls said nary a word to her. As a matter of fact,
Oh dear. I beg your pardon, madam.
it's fine. One even bumped into her, stifling a laugh as she trotted off. In all likelihood, she had done it intentionally. The poor white-haired girl who had fallen to the floor stared helplessly at the broken cups. The tea she had made for her husband was forming a stain in the carpet. The maid's behavior towards the mistress of the house was absolutely unacceptable. Nonetheless, it was commonplace, all because of the way Jacopo treated her. The more the man of the house acted cruel to her, the less weight her position as his wife held to the servants. Day in and day out, the maids worked busily, offered little opportunity for leisure, so they would naturally have accumulated quite a bit of stress. And she became the target for them to let off the steam. Not directly, but through a more subdued kind of harassment from the shadows. She must have felt quite miserable. I imagine she would have been better off as one of the maids. On the surface, and in front of others, they showed a respect for her as Jacopo's bride, but behind closed door, they acted very much the opposite. The disparity between the treatment she received around others, the treatment she was supposed to receive at all times, and the way she was actually treated made the abuse that much worse. And furthermore, as you've seen through the other doors, Master, she was a very reserved young woman. She could neither raise her voice in reprimand nor raise her hand in retaliation. I have to get this cleaned up. She extended her spindly fingers towards the shards of shattered porcelain. But even the broken cup seemed to have no concern to spare for her. Its shattered edge cut her fingertip when she made to pick it up. A trickle of warm red blood ran across her unearthly white skin. As painful the sight as it was, it had a sort of taboo beauty to it. The blood spilling from her finger showed no sign of slowing down. She clenched her hand into a fist, let out a sigh, and went back to collecting the shards of porcelain. But when she did,
Madam! Madam! What's the matter? Oh, madam, you're bleeding.
all while the other maids ignored her, one came running over, shouting to the white-haired girl's side.
We need to get that cleaned up and bandaged. Oh, you don't need to pick that up. That's not your job, madam.
It's all right, Maria. There's not much to pick up.
It is not at all. All right. And the rest of you, why are you just standing there? Your boss's wife is on her hands and knees and you're not even lifting a finger to help her? You disgust me.
Maria, it's fine, really.
Oh, madam. If you weren't so timid, this wouldn't happen. You're allowed to yell at them, you know?
It's all right, really. It's my fault.
Anyway, we should get that finger taken care of. Let's get you back to your room, okay?
But the broken cups and the spill.
As I said, that's the maid's work. Now come on, let's go.
Okay.
And the rest of you, get this mess cleaned up.
She roared like the wind in a thunderstorm. The other maids stood there dumbfounded, watching as she and the white-haired girl disappeared down the hall. But they were soon frowning and grumbling to one another.
think she can act all high and mighty just because the master is fond of her?
The woman's name was Maria, and she was one of the maids. And she was the one person in the mansion the white-haired girl could think of as an ally. Though her husband paid her no mind and the maids made her life miserable, just one person, Maria, treated her with respect and kindness. And I'm sure you can readily imagine just how much of a lifesaver that was for her. I too found myself somewhat relieved that Maria was there for her. And being a servant of this house, I was also one of the maids working there at the time. However, I was unable to involve myself to any great degree in her fate. This meant that there was little I could do to assist her, even in times of pain and unpleasantness. And the best I could do was pray that Maria would continue to lend the white-haired girl her hand.
And that does it.
Thank you, Maria. You're always such a big help.
Oh no, no need to thank me. I just did what any good maid should do.
No one else is in the room, you know.
Oh, right, then I can drop the act. Man, I just can't use to get talking all stuffy. I'm out there doing my best, but the head maid's still spouting stuff like, "Your manner of speaking is improper for a servant." Every single time we meet. Yeesh, come on, just shove it, would ya? You're a damn creep.
No, you mustn't speak of her like that.
Sorry, slip of the tongue. She just kinda gives me the willies, you know? Speaking of, you dropped the stuffy talk too, madam? Kinda awkward if only one of us is acting casual, you know?
This is normal for me. If I attempt to talk like you, I would freeze up out of nervousness. This is my casual.
Fair enough. Guess that's what happens when you're raised well. I like it though. That's a very regal feel about it.
I don't think my upbringing is the only factor.
But you know, upbringing is important. Worth a whole lot more than money, I'd say.
Suppose. Thank you, Maria. You're always so compassionate.
You betcha. They don't call me the Virgin Mary for nothing. I practically bleed compassion. Ha!
You know, that might be true. You very well could be the reincarnation of the Mother God.
No. You were supposed to laugh at that. It's just embarrassing if you take it seriously.
Alone in the white-haired girl's room, Maria was acting much more friendly and relaxed as they conversed, as opposed to her no-nonsense attitude in the hallway. The two women were, as you can see, quite close. They had crossed over the wall of separating master from servant and built up a bond of friendship. And at some point, they had begun to speak frankly with one another when no one else was around. Maria was the only person in the mansion around whom the white-haired girl felt comfortable being open. I imagine she very much enjoyed these moments of conversation. You wish to know who the head maid was? My. Are you sure you want to ask me that, Master? Some questions are better left unasked, for your own good.
I have to say, madam, you have the prettiest fingers. Mine are all rough and dry and nasty.
You think so? Mine haven't the slightest bit.
Oh, who needs beefy mitts anyway?
Try that again.
Sorry.
Mine haven't the slightest bit of muscle. They're about as frail as dead branches.
Oh, who needs beefy mitts anyway?
I still think healthy-looking hands like yours are far more attractive.
What? What's to like about these things? Women all over the world dream of having hands like yours. Slender, feminine, and perfectly cared for. I don't know, just looking at them lights a fire in my loins. Makes me want to lick every last one of them. Actually say, can I lick them? Can I run my tongue up and down all 10 of those sweet little digits? Come on, can I? What do you say?
Stop that, Maria, seriously.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Maria.
Right. How did those tea leaves turn out, madam? The ones you imported. All the maids just adore it. They can't get enough of that aroma. I'd sure like to get a taste of it. If you end up with extra, you think you could spare a sip for me?
That was, what was in the cups I dropped.
What? Really? Well, ain't that a crying shame? And Jacopo wouldn't have any of it? God, why does that man have such a stick of his ass? You went through all the trouble of making it for him and...
He was busy. It's not his fault.
Busy? You mean playing billiards, drinking bourbon, and puffing a damn cigar?
It may look to us like they're just making small talk, but I'm certain their meetings has some importance to their business. It was imprudent of me to try and step into the men's world.
That's just not right. I mean, you're his wife. Why shouldn't you be allowed into the room?
Doesn't bother me.
You don't have to pretend.
Here's an idea. How would you like to have some of that tea now? We also have some orange marmalade, which you like so much. Add a scoop of that in a tray of cookies, and we'll have the perfect tea time.
You're singing the siren song, madam. But you really should be doing that with him.
He would not have tea. I suspect he does not like it. I don't want it to go to waste, so...
Madam, I know it's none of my business, and I have no place at saying all this, but It's not impossible for a woman to file a divorce these days. You don't have to sit down and take it, not one bit. You're pretty, well-educated, and still young. There's hope, even if you do leave him. There are plenty of other men out there. You aren't obligated to stick with that arrogant jerk.
He's just very busy right now.
There you go again.
And there was a time when he was kind. He wasn't like this when we first met. Back then, he was a little awkward, but a kind man.
Him? A kind man?
Yes, believe it or not. There was indeed a time. Say, Maria, would you mind giving me a little bit more of your time? I'll make some tea and we can talk.
Alright. If you're telling me about when the Yokopo was decent, I'm all ears.
Indeed. As I'm sure you're aware, our parents arranged our marriage. Before I immigrated to this country to be married, I lived in a misty island nation. Portraits of my ancestors hung in the house where I lived. I remember as a child wincing in fear at the sight of them staring down at me. My mother and father were constantly telling me to show them respect, as it was their hard work that kept our bloodline alive and well. However, they were fighting an uphill battle to do the same. It would have been clear to anyone reasonably perceptive that our house was coming tumbling down. Valuable furniture and paintings slowly disappeared, and eventually the portraits were gone too. As our house collapsed, so too did my parents' health deteriorate, robbing us of any source of income. And though I was educated, I lacked the skills necessary to obtain work. Just as we were about to run out of money and options, my parents received Jacopo's parents' marriage proposition. Both of our families stood to benefit from the arrangement. I had social status and he had wealth. We each had what the other lacked. And one needs more than money to make it in the world. Without at least a semi-reputable name attached to you, you're liable to get laughed out of most social gatherings. I first met Jacopo here in this country. We didn't even know what the other looked like until our wedding day. To be quite honest, I was scared to death at first. I was so nervous what kind of man he would be. Was I to wed some middle-aged stranger? And we were not marrying because we had fallen in love like a normal couple. And I knew I was in no position to be concerned with such things, but when I thought about our future, I shook with fear. But then the man I saw through my veil at the wedding was remarkable. He was young, had strong masculine eyes, and at the same time he too appeared nervous. He was shaking as much, no, even more than me. Seeing that, the priest gave an impish little smirk when he asked Jacopo if he vowed his eternal love to me. I counted myself among the happy. And I still do. For in that moment, I experienced true love. You wanted to hear about when he was kind to me. Well, after the wedding, we were given a week to ourselves. I suppose you could call it a honeymoon, though we didn't take a trip overseas, or even go very far at all. He looked at me with uncertainty and asked,
Where would you like to go?
I beg your pardon?
That's what this week is for, right? I'll consider granting your request, so tell me where you want to go.
Um, this is all so sudden.
Nothing. Well, this whole engagement was spur of the moment. Normally, we would have planned a trip in advance. But unfortunately, our purpose is served so long as we act the part. You must be disappointed that you have to plan your honeymoon as it's happening.
No,
What? Speak clearly. I don't like it when people don't speak their mind.
I'm sorry, but I'm happy. Even if this is a political marriage.
Well, you're quite the positive thinker. Your parents say something to make you think that way?
I, um,
Well, either way, if you're so glad to be in this arrangement, then hurry up and decide on a destination. Though there's a limit to how far we can go. If you want to take a trip, I'll consider it.
mm,
What, is something funny?
it just seemed comical to me that our honeymoon has begun and we're only now deciding where we want to go. Not in a bad way, though. I'm glad our parents didn't arrange everything for us.
Mm.
And perhaps you heard, but I'm quite sensitive to sunlight and not in the best of health. So it'd be rather trying for me to spend a full week out of the house. We couldn't go on a trip, but, if it's not too much trouble.
Speak up.
Could you show me around town? I'm new to this country and unfamiliar with its customs. And I'm rather afraid to go wandering about on my own.
Show you around.
Yes. Would that be possible?
Hmm. On a rare bit of time off, you asked me to show you around town. Is that really the most exciting idea you have?
I'm sorry. If, there's somewhere else you would like to go, I'm fine with that. I will accompany you anywhere.
As if I could drag someone who just professed to being sickly all over the country. My god, I've lost all interest in a trip. Hello? What are you doing? Go get ready, now.
I beg your pardon?
Didn't you want to see the town?
You will show me around?
You're the one who asked. Not like I have any other options, so yeah, I'll show you around.
Thank you.
Just don't stand there, you dullard. Get a move on.
One moment. Wait for me, please. He hurriedly climbed into the carriage she called for, a look of frustrated displeasure on his face. And then, as if he had forgotten about me until that moment, he returned, grabbed me by the arm, and led me to the carriage. In retrospect, I realized he was not being very gentlemanly. But I was pleased that he was making any attempt to interact with me at all. As the carriage trotted down the streets, I saw so many new things. I had spent most of my time cooped up inside at home, so it was like stepping into an entirely new world. And add to that rapid industrial advancement currently taking place, I saw men shouting back and forth as they smacked newspaper articles with the backs of their hands. I saw corner cafes crowded with cigar-smoking men on break from work. It was like the hustle and bustle of a festival. But every festival has its underside. I also saw overworked men looking like they were on the verge of collapse, drinking water from a spigot on the side of the road. By the way of contrast, I wore fine clothing and had a carriage at my disposal. I imagine every day was a struggle for them just to remain afloat. Had I not married the man I had, I too might have found myself on the streets in a similar situation. But it was not relief that spread through my breast at the sight of them, it was pangs of guilt. It felt to me like a life of opulence was wrong and sinful. It broke my heart to know that I was living so much better than them. Jacopo snorted disapprovingly at me, seemingly reading my mind, and then said,
The poor man who envies the rich, covets his wealth, and finds the ambition to make the same for himself, and the rich man who pities the poor, thinking it is his duty to give them offerings of philanthropy. To me, the latter is the far more nefarious. Excessive charity will ruin a man, make him come to expect handouts. And then there are those with the wrong idea of pity who let themselves fall down to the same place, mistakenly believing it will somehow make the poor feel better. What a joke. If you're going to do anything for them, you might as well encourage them to climb upward. Spur on economic growth and the flow of capital. Doesn't that sound like the better option?
I say nothing, simply smiling and giving an ambiguous nod. He had a point. My sympathy and guilt meant nothing to people actually experiencing hardship. If feeling guilty was my own fortune, I acted upon that pity in a way he had described. It would accomplish little more than self-satisfaction, and he seemed to see straight through to my very core. This was a man who had built up his own fortune through investment, which I imagined required him to be rather astute. But doesn't a world where everyone is constantly trying to climb higher and higher sound rather exhausting? I personally would prefer to be in a position where I could watch, if only from a distance, as others climbed. but obviously I could not say as much to him. Sometime later, the carriage came to a stop in front of a shop. As I looked at the building perplexedly, he gestured to the door with his chin, signaling for me to get out. Lost and confused, I stepped down from the carriage, and before me spread a showcase behind the large glass window. However, lined up in the cases were not precious metals or expensive clothing, but machines. At first, I had no idea what kind of devices they were.
Have you never had your photo taken before?
No, I have had a portrait painted, though. Are these machines for taking photographs?
A portrait, eh? Why am I not surprised?
I did not mean to boast.
Go on, get in.
Please, wait for me. The owner came out to greet us with a wide smile as we entered the shop.
Well, this ain't the strangest thing I've seen all day. You bring in a lady, a real looker at that. How on earth do you catch a pretty little thing?
She's my wife.
Huh. Oh, well, I beg your pardon. I'll be a monkey's uncle. Just got to show you never know where the cards may fall.
You make it sound like my getting married is some kind of miracle.
I always saw you as one that chooses money over love, sir. Oh, pardon me, this isn't the appropriate time to say in front of your wife.
Hmm.
Do you often come to this shop?
On occasion, I need some things here from time to time.
I see.
You go smirking again. What's so funny?
We're going to have our photo taken, yes? I'm so nervous and excited. I've never had one before. And to have it taken side by side with you.
What are you talking about?
Pardon?
Who said we were getting our pictures taken? Side by side? Please. You're sending shivers down my spine.
But this is a photography shop.
Hey, shopkeep. The product I contacted you about, is it ready?
Oh, yep, sir. Sit tight, I'll be right up.
You take a seat. There's a chair over there.
What?
I'm going to show you something much more exciting than sitting still and waiting in front of a camera lens.
Oh.
Just do as I say.
Okay. I sat down in front of a large mirror, which I presume was normally used to check your appearance before you having your picture taken. Sitting before a mirror with someone else present was quite nerve-wracking. Out of embarrassment, I dropped my gaze to my knees. But when Jacopo returned, I was entranced by the curious object in his hands. What is this?
Do you know what persistence of vision is?
Uh,
The human eye does not perceive the world 100% accurately. This is especially true for objects in motion. It remembers images for a short time, so if you put a new image in the same place, your eye perceives it as in motion.
um,
Seeing for yourself will be faster than explaining it. You see the slits in the disc? Look through the bottom one and into the mirror.
okay.
Good, just like that. Bring your head in close. Here goes.
Standing behind me, he slid his fingers across the top of the peculiar toy, causing it to spin gracefully. And then, uh,
So what do you see?
they're dancing. A man and woman are dancing.
Sounds like you're not having any trouble seeing it. Are they dancing well?
Yes, yes, they are. It's the most adorable thing.
What? Adorable. That's funny. I asked to have it modeled after a ballroom dance.
Uh, um, yes, it's a very elegant dance. But you see, they're small, like little dwarves, which I thought was kind of cute. And they seem so close, going round and round, without ever letting go of each other's hands. This is incredible. Why does it look like they're dancing? They were all lined up in a row a few moments ago.
Goodness, I just explained that to you. It's playing a trick on your eyes. What you're seeing is lots of different pictures in a short period of time. To put it in words you might understand better, it's an illusion. Your eyes are being fooled into thinking the image is moving.
An illusion. But they're dancing. They really are. And they look like they're having a wonderful time. Are you sure it's an illusion and not something else? To me, it does not seem to be. I cannot see it as anything else but two tiny people dancing.
That's how it works. Reach out your hand and try to grab them. You won't be able to.
You're right. That's a shame.
I didn't think you actually would.
But it's the most precious thing. It looks like they're dancing on top of my palm. I was mesmerized by the strange phenomenon. Pictures were moving, after all. Still images began to dance before me. It was almost as if God had breathed life into them. He had called it an illusion, but I could not grasp that. It was such an adorable, heartwarming sight. I imagined the two were off living in some other world separate from our own. They looked so happy. I was almost certain they were off dancing in their joyous world, free from all the sorrow and loneliness and the pain of this one. Eventually, the speed at which they danced began to slow, as if they were resting their legs. I almost thought I could hear the sound of their feet with each step. Uh, they've stopped.
They can dance forever, they don't get tired.
I see. I'm amazed such an incredible device exists in this world. It makes me wish I had gone outside sooner.
I'm sure someone from as distinguished a house as yours has seen plenty of amazing things with your family.
Hardly. I rarely ever left the house, and I'm ignorant about the ways of the world. If you had not told me, I would have probably never known about moving pictures, the illusion of movie pictures.
Do you like it?
Yes, of course.
More than the portrait you had painted?
Yes. Yes, I do. The painting was wonderful too, but
You can't seem to make up your mind. Go on, tell me, which do you like better, the portrait or this?
uh, um, I like this better.
I see.
He looks somewhat pleased.
Hmm. When it comes down to it, this is a simple trick only a child would fall for.
And then I suppose that makes me a child. If it means I get to watch something as splendid as two tiny people dancing, I'll happily fall for the trick.
Quit describing it as two tiny people dancing. You're going to lose your head that far up in the clouds.
Uh, oh, I'm sorry. I do not know how else to describe it, though.
It's a toy called a phenakistoscope.
Phenakistoscope? Stope?
Phenakistoscopy.
Phenakis... wheel.
Close enough. It was invented around 30 years ago, and the shopkeep made one modeled after the original design.
So the shop owner drew this?
He did. A lot better than you'd expect, isn't he?
Yes, indeed. I'm surprised he could draw something so cute.
Say that to his face and he'll go red as a beet. What I'd give to get a load of that, you should tell him the next time you see him.
He's a sweet man.
Despite how he looks, you mean.
It It's not right to judge people based on their appearance.
I'm just kidding. Don't take it too seriously. The shopkeep here loves new technology. That phenakistcopa is one such invention that caught his eye. You can trick the eye into thinking drawings are moving. Using a sequence of photos, you can perhaps make it seem as though real people are moving too. And if it becomes possible to show those images to many people at once, these developments could broaden the options artists have to express themselves.
Not drawings, but photographs.
Yes, photos. By taking hundreds or perhaps thousands of photographs, it would be possible to reproduce the world as we see it. This room, people walking down the streets. There's no point in recording boring everyday life, though. If you're going to leave a record of anything behind, it should be the projects and enterprises that move nations. Say, for example, a moving record of the opening ceremony of the railroad. That would be something worth watching. And then, in time, it would expand beyond a mere record-keeping technology and find its way into the hands of artists.
Is such a thing possible? You must remain still for a long time just to take a single photograph.
Right now it isn't. But eventually it will be. I'm not simply fantasizing here.
Is that so? It sounds very futuristic. Do you
What?
want to support people who work on that sort of thing? Is that why you're friends with the owner?
It has nothing to do with my wants. I merely think there's money in it. The rich starve for entertainment, and artists create that entertainment. I have no interest in their pretentious self-expression. I just want their money. What? What's so funny?
Ah.
What? What's so funny?
You look like you're enjoying yourself.
Mm, Honestly, it's just about the money.
As you say.
Alright, let's get moving. Next is dinner.
What? We're leaving already?
Does that displease you?
No, not at all. To tell you the truth, I wanted to spend a little more time playing with the Finnicus wheel, but I could not bring myself to say as much. Reluctantly, I approached the owner to return the wheel.
Don't bother. Bring it with you.
What? But
If you don't want it, that's fine too. Just make your decision quickly. You're making the driver wait.
having said that, Jacopo exited the shop. I alternated between looking at his back and the Finnicus wheel, debating what I wanted to do. And then, with a smile, the owner whispered to me,
You're allowed to keep it, really. Your husband out there had it made as a gift for you.
"For me?"
A little while back, he came to my shop asking if he could make a
Phenakistoscope.
phenakistoscope. Now that about knocked me out of my chair. He's a man who almost never asks for favors. He's pretty damn brusque, but he's got a tongue sharp enough to cut steel. But he's not wicked to his core, I swear it. So please, ma'am, be a pillar of support for him.
In that moment, the Finnicus wheel became a precious treasure to me. And yet only just married days earlier. And yet he had commissioned it for me without even knowing what I looked like. I was filled with a warm, pleasant elation. I agreed with the owner. Jacopo was not a bad man. He merely had difficulty expressing himself. Hurrying back to the carriage, I gave him my deepest thanks. He glanced over at me for a moment, then turned back towards the window and muttered, "Yeah." From there, we went to a restaurant for dinner.
You call this a pizza? The crust is an atrocity. It's like I'm chewing on rubber. How can you wave my country's flag and not serve spaghetti? Do you have any shame at all? This wine is pitifully unbalanced. Far too high levels of acidity. Listen to me carefully. The house wine is the face of a restaurant.
He complained about every little thing. It was a complete disaster. But curiously enough, I was not at all off-put by his behavior. When the sun set, the carriage made its way to a nearby hill. The cool nighttime breeze felt wonderful on my skin, and flushed from alcohol and the light from the gas lamp made a comforting warmth to it. And though Jacopo had complained about the quality of the wine, once he had intoxicated himself, his mood improved visibly. It made him unexpectedly talkative.
Look out at this city. A gloomy town that shuts down at night isn't suited to expansion or growth. But this city isn't like that. You can see people walking beneath the lamps, and you can hear the bustle of them talking. This is a city that still has plenty of room to grow. As they ride the rising wave of the economy, many more people will gather here. More people means more money in circulation. More money in circulation means the city grows, companies are founded, and more goods are bought and sold.
Will it really change so drastically?
It can be difficult to see what's happening from the inside. The majority of people just go about their daily lives, and the next thing they know, things are different. No, I'd wager most don't notice the changes at all. Only those with eyes sharp enough to realize what's happening can see success. I cannot afford to overlook even the most minute change.
Do you have a dream of some kind?
Dream? I'm not sure it's easy enough to attain to call it a dream. Others might call it greed or perhaps ambition. Don't laugh now. My intention is to make the world mine.
The world.
Yes, the world. And to do that, you need neither physical strength nor kindness, but money and influence. People have no choice but to kneel before those forces.
Are you so intent on obtaining power?
Yeah. 'Cause I want to change my country, I imagine.
Your country?
You're aware that I, like you, am an immigrant, right? I emigrated from an island in the Mediterranean, though not the same island as you. My country is a peculiar place where candor and violence go hand in hand. As a whole, the country is on the poor side, and if nobody does anything about that, I am but one of a few of my fellow countrymen who has set his sights on the New World. They are falling far behind other nations. If I find success here, perhaps that will catch their attention. But if it doesn't, then my country is doomed to collapse.
You have much love for your homeland.
Eh, my feelings are a little more complicated than mere love. But that's nothing you need to concern yourself with. Well, I'll have to get myself drunk around a woman again. Forget everything I just said. It's about time I head back to the house.
Alright, but,
What is it?
is it alright if I provide you encouragement as you try to obtain your dream? I know my presence is more likely to be a hindrance, but I would like to be there to watch as you trek forward.
Mm, I suppose. Do as you wish.
Thank you. You have my support then. Um, darling?
Sends a shiver down my spine, though not an unpleasant one. I'm glad to have you as my partner.
Without a doubt, happy then. His smiles, the things he said, and the Fennecis will he gave me, they were all undeniably real. And those memories give me the will to wait. For the day things go back to how they were. And they allow me to believe. Con, I think.
She's on, be right back.
Oh,
This is something that actually happened to another maid.
Yeah, there we go. Good.
She heard a sound in the middle of the night. A sound like dripping water. At first, she thought it was raining. So she looked through the window, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky to cover the stars. Maybe it's the faucet, she thought. So she stepped out to her room and into the corridor. Compared to her room, it was unearthly chill. The maid regretted not bringing something to cover herself with. But that didn't make any sense. Normally, the temperature wasn't that much colder outside her room. Her nightclothes had always been more than enough to trip to the lavatory. Wondering what the reason could be, she made her way toward the sound, but then she realized something. There were no faucets in the direction she was going. Rather, she was headed toward the hall. The mansion where she served had many halls, but this one was far off in the corner of the house. The least used hall of them all. It had a high roof, but not a lot of space, so it was difficult to make good use of. It also had a somewhat heavy air to it. A very curious room. It was the kind of place you might assign someone to clean as part of their hazing. Anyway, when the maid realized the sound was coming from that particular hall, she, as you might expect, let out an uncomfortable sigh. But there might be a leak, and having noticed, she couldn't simply ignore it, you know? So, as much as she hesitated, she pushed open the doors to the hall. There was nobody there, and it didn't look like anything was leaking, either. There were no puddles or water stains anywhere to be found. But she could still hear the sound. Drip, drip, getting louder and louder. Slowly stepping farther into the room, looking left and right, and left again, she searched for the source of the sound, coming to a stop in the center of the hall. She stood there still, quiet, and then a chilly spot on the nape of their neck. With a little yelp, she reached back to feel her back, but it wasn't wet. Confused, she slowly, warily tilted her head backward. And there hung a bloody skeleton from the ceiling.
Ah!
That's rich. Amazing. Oh my god, you scream like a little girl.
Maria, you little...
My god, are you men or children? This is my house, and I would rather you didn't talk about it like that.
Whose words were those again?
Shut your mouth. How do you know about that? Were you eavesdropping? And another thing, I do not care for that sort of stupid, fantastical tales you women love to pass around.
Because they scare you? You've never been able to handle anything scary, Jacopo. Whoa. Don't glare at me like that. You're gonna disturb my sides.
So, did you come here for the sole purpose of telling me that cheap tripe?
In that matter of fact, just makes you look twice as much of a wuss. Well, I mean, I did make up a good half of it. But the maid really did hear a sound in the middle of the night. It came from the back hall of this very mansion. Did you know? They say it used to be a chapel?
Again, I have no interest in you women's little ghost stories.
Is that so? You sure you're not just scared?
Maria.
Well, that's the rumors aren't completely unfounded. This is a pretty old mansion. Ain't had a lot of work done on it. Kinda feels like it's really holding itself together. Like a big old kilt with pieces from all different time periods. The back hall is one of the oldest badges. There's a huge window on the far end. Supposedly there used to be stained glass in it. A depiction of an archangel, they say. Such a shame. I wanted when it was broken. If it was still there, I bet it'd be worth a fortune.
I find that hard to believe. First of all, why would anyone put a chapel inside a mansion?
You've got a point, I guess.
Now how about you do some actual work instead of distracting yourself with all this nonsense?
I do work. But, the other maid can be a bit... nasty, you know? Playing with other women like that is like walking on glass.
Am I to blame for that?
What if I said you were? Don't give me that look. They're just not very fond of me. Simple as that. Nothing you can do about it.
Is that so?
Oh yeah, I was talking to madam. She was telling me you used to be quite a gentleman. Were you, perhaps, actually in love back then? You don't act like it, so it's a miss. But I guess you're not made entirely out of steel. Just like when you were younger, you're still...
Do not speak of that. The past is not worth remembering. It is unnecessary.
And to you, the past is just to be cast aside.
I...
Nah, it's not important. You don't want me to talk about it, I won't talk about it. Your wife? Never mind. I'll leave you be. I have to get back to work soon, or I'll be staring down the headmaid's Arctic smile.
Alright.
If the fancy strikes me, I'll drop by and we can trade more ghost stories.
Maria.
What? No ghost stories?
No, not that. I've not forgotten those days. But no, it's...
I'll be off then.
Alright. If the fancy strikes you, drop by and we can trade something other than ghost stories.
What'd I tell ya? I'll consider it. Goodbye.
God damn it. I can't escape anything.
They've grown to be so beautiful. Such a wonderful fragrance. The scent of roses is so calming. I wonder why that is. Would it cause any trouble if I picked one? Well, hello there. Out for a midnight stroll, are you? Quite the peculiar hobby. Madam? Uh, um, I cannot spend as much time as I would like outside during the day, so I end up coming out at night. I apologize if I startled you. Oh no, not at all. There is a chilling, captivating beauty to the sight of your snow-white form standing there in the moonlit garden. I would hardly... Um, what are you doing out so late? I saw a figure through the window. On the slight chance it might be a burglar, I thought it was my responsibility to ensure they did not break in. It was also the middle of the night when the grocer's servant broke into their safe. News of that spread quite far. I'm sure you would have heard about it. Oh, but Jamash was imprisoned some time ago. Dear me, I cannot seem to get my head out of the past. Do you intend to give that white rose to someone? Yes. I was thinking about giving it to my husband. Well, I expect he has little fondness for such feminine taste, and the scent of flowers truly has a truly calming effect. He might find it relaxing when he needs a reprieve from his work. Oh, is that so? You are very kind-hearted. Speaking of white roses, the rose he meant to give you was the same shade of white. Oh, he? But when you touched it, it turned a deep shade of red. There was but a single white rose in the garden, so he was unable to give it to you as he had wished. In its place, he had a decorative rose fashioned for you. What exactly are you referring to? Oh dear, do you not remember? Then I might assume you've forgotten about what happened to the rose accessory as well. He was unable to give that to you either. But that time, because you rejected the gift. I'm not criticizing you for that decision, of course. You had a perfectly good reason for not accepting it. Heartbroken from having lost you, he buried the rose in this garden. Over the years, the roses in the garden withered away, and in their place grew a thick, unsightly nest of weeds. Many, many years later, that accessory was dug up by a beast. And curiously enough, it had not a speck of rust on it. A beast? You do not remember him either. The foreign man who, through his interaction with you, almost regained his humanity. I'm sorry. I have no idea what you speak of. The only gift I've ever received from a man is my Fennekiss will. And furthermore, I've only lived in this mansion for a year. While the garden was not thriving as it is now, it certainly was not in ruins when I arrived. And because I've been taking care of it, yes. But for whatever reason, by my hands alone, I wasn't able to make it into anything quite as splendid as it is now. Once you arrived and began to work on it, however, and just look around. You've reformed. You've restored it to its former glory, the magnificence of the flaxen-haired family's time. I promise I'm not trying to fault you for anything. Now that I think about it, it makes sense you would not remember. Though you are still you, you are different than before. Different, though not in the sense you are a wholly distinct person. Tell me, is your name again? My name is. Yes, but you should already know that. Again? More proof that you are indeed you. Do you know that your name. Did you know that your current name is pronounced the same as the name of the person you're waiting for? What are you talking about? I have met you many times, and I know of your past, of events that transpired long, long ago. I am telling you the truth. I first came to this mansion just a year ago. Until then, I never left my country, or even set foot out of my own house. We did not have any servants either. So where then are you saying we met? In this mansion, of course. But I'm telling the truth. It was a year ago, shortly after my parents fell ill and received an offer for my marriage. I knew something had to be done. I knew it, and so I'm telling the truth. If that is what you remember, then I do not doubt you. But I also suspect I know why you seem so flustered. Are there moments when your memories seem hazy? When it seems like important details have fallen through the cracks? You needn't fret. One day, eventually, you shall remember all. One day.
What the hell is this? A white rose. Did she leave this here? Flower? What does she think she's doing? She trying to aggravate me? That garden. That damn rose garden is the whole problem. Flowers serve no purpose but to deceive. That garden is a sign of weakness. There's no place in this house.
Approximately a week had passed since then. The white-haired girl was, as usual, spending her time in her room reading, staying inside the house. Then Maria barged in.
Madam! Madam!
Oh my, you're out of breath. What happened?
What happened is we have a big problem. The garden. The rose garden.
The garden?
All the roses you put so much love and care into growing are being chopped down. We'll lose them all if we don't hurry.
Upon hearing the news, the white-haired girl dashed from her room and towards the garden, with Maria following close behind. When she arrived, she saw a dozen or so sweaty, rugged men at work, Jacopo shouting orders. The men clearly had no concept of how much a single flower was worth, no concern whatsoever for their beauty, for they mercilessly, thoughtlessly, hacked away at the shrubs like they were naught but weeds. Each flower they tore from the earth extinguished another of the many lives the white-haired girl had put so much time and effort into tending for.
Como, what are you?
Oh, hello, Maria. I didn't expect you would come with her.
Why would you do?
Why? Why, it goes without saying. This house has no need of a garden. Damn flowers have no place here. Might as well do something worthwhile with the soil. A miniature railroad would be a better use of space, and certainly a great deal easier on the eyes. I could even get my hands on some genuine wheels. The same wheels being used on the revolutionary Transcontinental Railroad. 10 or 20 years down the line, they'll be worth a fortune.
Como.
You know how much this garden meant to me, don't you? Did it honestly have no place here? Flowers have a calming effect on people. They give you peace. They are not by any means worthless.
So you're saying that White Rose was your passive-aggressive way of telling me to calm down?
Not at all. I simply thought you...
At the end of the day, you're just using them for your own purposes, to trick and deceive. To you, this rose garden was nothing but...
Jacopo! You've gone too far. This isn't right.
Gone too far. This is my mansion. What I do with my property is my business. With that rose arch out of the picture, we'll have a much better view. There won't be anything blocking the sun any longer. Weren't you supposed to be sensitive to sunlight? Spend too much time out here and you're liable to fall ill. Get back inside now. You too, Maria.
Ugh.
The poor thing, though she did not say a word, was surely thinking. Are you truly that determined to rob me of my sanctuary? And the words twirled around in her head, unable to make the final journey to her lips. She stood there and looking... Relax, homie. She stood there, looking down at her own feet as her husband marched off, and listened to the screams of the roses being reaped. After being torn down by Jacopo, the garden reverted to the state of ruined desolation. A shame after all that work that went into restoring it to the beauty it had under the Flaxenhead family. And as Jacopo had said, in its place went scraps of metal, train wheels, prototype models, carbon rods. These items may have had value for him, but I certainly do not think it was worth robbing his wife of a place that made her feel comfortable, just so he could store them there. And besides, I was rather fond of the rose garden myself. The roses seemed to evoke a sense of nostalgia in me. I felt as though, somewhere far beyond the edge of my memories, I had seen another garden of roses, modest though it may have been. But I cannot remember when it was. Does that come to a surprise to you? I am quite sure there are periods of the mansion's history of which I am not aware. But in any case, Jacopo had caused many people a great deal of pain in order to repurpose that garden for himself. And he continued to walk all over his wife. Whenever she tried to do something kind for him, he would brush her off, saying, "That's not your place." He paid no mind whatsoever to the looks of dejection that the rose to her face time he rejected her. I was beginning to wonder if anything she had said about the man he had been a year earlier was actually true. And if it was true, could a person really go through such a drastic change of heart in such a short time? What do you think, Master? No, I've spoken enough about me already. I seem to be talking a lot about myself this time. That is hardly appropriate behavior for a maid. Now let us return to our tale. That evening, the white-haired girl sat in front of her room, staring sorrowfully at her fennekiss wheel. A small mirror before her, she tried spinning the paper disc. But it was just not the same as before. Her husband was not there at her side, and even more critically, there was not a smile on her face. And then she heard a faint knock on her door. Who is it?
It's me, madam. It's me. May I come in?
Oh, Maria. Of course, come in. What are you doing here at this time of night?
Was just wondering how you were doing. Should I have left you alone?
Oh, it's no trouble at all. I'm always glad to have you.
You're making me blush, madam. I got the feeling you were a little down in the dumps. So I'm not here because I need to be. I just kinda ended up here, I guess.
Maria.
Sorry, I'm not making any sense. I can be a bit of a busybody, you know? Trouble with boundaries, I guess. Never been able to fix that.
No, I don't consider you intrusive at all. I cannot count how many times your bright smile and cheerful energy have shone a light on me when things were dark. And if I didn't have you, I would have given up already. You seem to see right through me. Even now, you're exactly right. I am feeling a little dispirited. That garden was an even brighter life raft than I thought. Perhaps I'm being overly dramatic, but the roses were almost like children to me.
I get it. I do. You put your heart and soul into tending that garden. It was obvious how much you loved them. Of course it's gonna hurt watching a bunch of men stomp all over your flowers when you cared for them like your own children. Now, I know I said this once already, but you don't need to force yourself to put up with him, really. You don't have to bend to his will just because you're a woman. You can survive without him. Anytime you want to walk away, that's your choice. I mean, I'd sure be lonely if you left, madam. But your happiness is more important than any of that. So, you know.
Thank you, Maria. I truly do appreciate it. But I would still like to wait for the day I can see his warm smile once more.
If you say so. Well, in that case, guess I'll just have to be there to back you up. It'll be alright. You leave everything to this holy virgin. I'll have a stupid grin on my face no matter how down you're feeling.
You really are the reincarnation of the Mother God, aren't you?
Oh, you. I told you it's just a joke. Yeah, whatever. So, hey, madam, how about a dance?
A dance at this time of night.
Yep, and since it's so late, no loud music. All you get is a little whistling courtesy of me.
But this room is too small for...
We'll use the Great Hall.
Wouldn't that put us in everyone else's way? He would probably complain about the noise too.
No need to worry. Jacopo's out inspecting some factory or something today. After that, he's got a meeting, so he'll be staying the night elsewhere. The rest of the maids are in their rooms chatting away. No one will notice. Where I come from, we dance all the time. We take eat, drink, and be merry to heart. No food or drink for us, but we absolutely can dance. Dancing is a great way to forget all your cares.
I'm not much of a dancer.
No big deal. Nobody's watching. Come on, put on a little fancy perfume and let's have some fun.
I don't have any perfume, though.
Didn't think so. You've got all the right ingredients, madam, but you don't try to make anything special out of them. You've got so much potential, but not even a decent-sized wardrobe. At the very least, you should wear some perfume. Which is why, ta-da! I brought some with me. The maids are in love with this stuff. It's a big hit with women all over the country. The base is vanilla and it's got several other fragrances mixed in. Give it a try. It smells divine.
But Maria,
Come on, what's the harm? Just a little splash on your wrist like so. What do you think?
You were right. It smells wonderful.
Doesn't it? So, you like it?
Yes, very much so.
Excellent. Now, off we go to the Great Hall.
Are we really going to dance?
You bet your butt we are. It's not healthy to hole up in your room all day. I know you can't handle a lot of sunlight, but you still gotta have some fun and move your body. Come on, let's go!
Oh, Maria. Though she looked outwardly uncertain as Maria led her forward, hand around her wrist, the white-haired girl seemed to be enjoying herself on the inside. Having spent her life without a single friend, she never dreamed of the day would come when she would find herself being dragged through the empty halls of the dark mansion by another woman. Maria's presence seemed to shine a light upon the quiet corridor. Would have been a very lonely trek without her. Maria spun around, gave an impish smirk, and raised her pointer finger with her lips with a soft shush. The sight of it caused the white-haired girl to chuckle quietly. The two of them, on their way to their secret private ball, were like two adolescent girls. In short order, they arrived at the Great Hall. My heart was pounding all the way here.
What's there to be nervous about? It's not like you're breaking any rules. Only kids get in trouble for staying up late. Once you've grown up, you're responsible for yourself.
I will say, though, it seems rather odd for two women to dance together.
Oh? If you're having a good time, what does it matter what's between your legs? Where I come from, there's dances where families lock arms in a big ring and go round in circles. So who's to say two girls can't have some fun together?
I imagine you had many good moments with your family.
Well, I don't have a family anymore.
What?
Alright, so I'll show you how it's done. Watch carefully, 'cause you're up next.
Oh, okay. With a wide grin on her face, Maria began whistling softly, prancing across the floor with an energetic rhythm. It was not the kind of complicated dance you'd see at fancy parties. The motions were simple, flowing, unembellished. A folk dance, I suppose you might call it. She seemed to be improvising a little bit as well. But in any event, the white-haired girl was captivated. Despite it being a sequence of steps anyone could replicate, Maria breathed life into the dance. She was neither lithe as an acrobat, nor as light on her feet as a professional dancer. She was her own lively, beautiful self. Maria twirled in place, the skirt of her maid uniform billowing gently up around her. With a smile, she extended her hand towards the white-haired girl. She hesitated for a moment, but as if being pulled forward by some invisible force, she took Maria's hand. Hand in hand, Maria ushered the white-haired girl into her dance. It was just the two of them, but you could almost see the crowd forming around them, and the other people stepping up to join in.
That's it, madam. Doing great. Now lift your leg up, good, and spin like so.
This is not easy, Maria. I'm having trouble following along.
You can do it. Looking good so far. You're a natural, madam.
Oh, Maria. I won't fall for your flattery.
I mean it.
In the whispers of two girls, their muffled laughs. Step, hop, step, step. The rustling of fabric. Many different soft sounds laid on top one of another, creating a little bubble of happiness in the center of it all. And the white-haired girl's movements were a great deal clumsier than Maria's, but Maria would never disparage her for that. On the contrary, she showered her with praise. As flustered as the white-haired girl appeared, I imagined she was quite pleased. Before long, the tightness in her face muscles loosened. A smile spread across her lips and she began to brighten up.
See what I tell ya? Fun, huh?
Yes, I'm quite surprised. Both that I can dance and that I enjoy doing it so much.
Glad to hear it.
They exchanged looks and both laughed. That might have been the first time I've ever seen the white-haired girl so delighted. However, because of her infirmity, she quickly found herself out of breath, her porcelain skin flushed red. Maria immediately stopped for a break. She could have surely continued dancing for some time yet, but Maria was conscientious of the white-haired girl's physical condition. She looked over at Maria regretfully. My apologies. If only I had more stamina. I'm hardly a suitable partner for you, Maria.
Sure you are. This is all to cheer you up, madam. So as long as you're having fun, nothing else matters. And heck, I'm enjoying myself plenty too. What do you think? Wouldn't it be nice to do this again sometime? Whenever you're feeling down, let's dance.
If you really enjoy dancing with a frail girl like me, then I would be glad to.
Have a little more confidence in yourself, madam. You're so pretty and kind-hearted. I have loads of fun when I'm with you. So you don't need to be so hard on yourself. Got it?
Thank you.
The pleasure is mine. 'Tis an absolute honor to have the rare opportunity to see such a bright smile on your face, madam.
My apologies for keeping you out so late. I should get back to my room.
Oh, I didn't even realize what time it was. I'm more than up for a little more gum flapping.
You've improved my mood more than adequately. I would not want you to be tired for work tomorrow.
Aw, okay. Well then, let's get out of here.
Yes, let's. Smiles on both their faces, they made to exit the great hall. However, before they reached the door, it swung open. A man's towering shadow cast the two women into darkness, his cold, bitter glare fixed on them. If I hadn't even the faintest premonition this might happen, I would have done anything in my power to stop the two cheery girls on their way to the hall. But I am eternally powerless.
What are you doing?
Standing before them in the doorway was the master of the house, Jacopo. I thought she would not be back until tomorrow.
And how would you know that? No, forget that. Does my staying the night elsewhere have any effect on you? You were just waiting for this opportunity, weren't you?
No, what would I possibly want you out of the house for?
I'm sure you know better than anyone.
What?
What does that smell? Perfume? When did you get perfume? And I have to say, you seem to be having quite the time. Look at you, you're out of breath, red as a beet. I made the right decision coming back. Where the hell were you going?
No, I wasn't going.
Jacopo, calm down. Seriously.
You shut it. Now you're taking this tramp's side.
Uh,
I've told you before, you are not to leave this house without first consulting me. Or do you mean to tell me you've forgotten? God, your ears aren't just for show, alright. They're better than that. They'll even throw out the parts you don't want to hear.
Oh, I swear I was not doing anything you.
Silence. I have no interest in your excuses. You're always watching from the shadows, observing, trying not to step on anyone's toes. And in the back of your mind, you're mocking me.
No,
Listen up and listen good. You just try stepping out of line again. You just try disgracing me again. You will not get away with it. For the love of God. Get back to your room now. You too, Maria.
Alright.
God, what is this sickeningly sweet smell? How utterly infuriating. It'll take forever to get this off me. I always thought you had at least some sense of taste.
why did you have to disparage her so? What did she do wrong? What did she do to deserve that? She did nothing whatsoever wrong. She deserved none of the ridicule he showered her with. However, she was not a strong-willed woman. She did not have the courage to retort to the man yelling at her. And neither did Maria, it seemed. Without another word, they both scrambled out of the great hall away from Jacopo. And the white-haired girl was a painfully miserable sight to behold. The cheer had drained from her spirit, the rosy hue from her now pale cheeks. She was hunched forward slightly, looking like a small, scared animal.
Say, uh... I'm sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't asked you to dance, and me bringing the perfume only made things worse.
No, you need not feel bad about anything, Maria. Everything you did was with my best interest at heart. So, don't worry. I'll be fine.
So, madam, I'll clear everything up. I really am to blame after all. He wouldn't even give you the time of day if you tried. He's a stubborn little shit when he's mad. I'll talk to him. He's more likely to listen to me. I'll make sure he knows he was jumping to conclusions. That I'm the one who dragged you out here to dance. And also that I forced you to wear the perfume. I'll clear everything up, okay? So please, you cheer up.
It would be the best if I could tell him myself. But yes, you're right. He would not likely listen to me. He rarely ever listens to me. I should be ashamed. I cannot even hold a simple conversation with my own husband.
These things happen, you know? It's not easy being married, in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yes, you're right. I apologize for having you do something so unpleasant, but I would appreciate that.
Oh no problem. I'm happy to. No need to apologize. I've got this. I'll dunk his head in cold water until he's not blowing steam from his ears anymore. I'll cool him down. Promise. And you never know, maybe he'll be open to listening. You could be back to the way you were a year ago in no time. Don't you worry. I'll take care of it, madam. Be positive. You look so much better with a smile on your face.
All right. Thank you. I doubted Jacopo would listen, even coming from Maria. And I imagine the white-haired girl felt much the same way. However, she grabbed onto that sliver of hope. She let herself dream. She let herself believe, even just faintly, that everything would go well. Such is human nature. When uncertainty has you in its clutches, you grasp at whatever hope you can find to keep yourself afloat. That night, she did not sleep. She was afraid that even in her dreams, Jacopo would be shouting at her. She felt as though her memories of a year prior were beginning to crumble away. Oh, thank God I was right.
Alright, yeah.
I feel hate. I want to eat this person.
Easy does it, Bone.
Terry, what did
I
she
heard
do?
I heard the blood
She
of
did
parasites
nothing.
tastes delicious.
What did she...
Oh man, I can't believe you wore cologne. I don't like in the
We're
room.
in a room. We're in a room and you want perfume. How dare you?
Wow, everybody got thoughts today.
I want to
can't
break
believe
his
you're
teeth
trying
and
to
flick his
leave.
balls.
I think Bone's thoughts are mostly hatred.
I'm going to save
Just
my
see you
thoughts
hate.
for the discussion.
Are you gonna keep the screen up just to have the music playing
Yeah, of
orange?
course. Yeah,
Oh,
obviously.
Hate.
All Bone knows right now is hate.
Right now, all I feel is violence in my soul.
Oh boy.
Oh man, I feel like we should go
So you
ahead and
feel
get
like
this party
Jacopo.
started then. Shit, everybody
Alright.
got thoughts. Mr. Jacopo
Yeah.
himself.
He's the worst, and I hate him. He's just literally a shitty person, just top to bottom. Like he does not
I
seem
love
to have
Jacopo, he's the fucking
redeeming
worst.
qualities yet. Like, and you just look at it, and you just know somewhere along this goddamn door, they're gonna try and be like, yeah, but what about how much he suffered? Wait until they try.
This bitch.
He came from a very
You know, he wasn't
horny-
always like that. He used to be so nice, and then she said the story of how she was like a tiny bit less shitty, but still pretty fucking
Oh god,
shitty.
Rindy. Calm down, Rindy. Down,
You know,
down, Rindy. Down, Rindy.
and you know what? Completely deserved, and Rindy is completely right. Yeah,
I know. but
he's
she's
just the
really
worst.
She really does sound like she's gonna pop a blood vessel, though.
My going theory on how this is going to go with the setups we're getting is we're gonna find out his secret dark past, and he's probably not actually gonna tell anyone, or he's gonna tell only Maria, who already knows it because she grew up with him. And then somewhere along the line, Maria and white hair girl are going to try to scare him, either just to be a little more fun and try and like liven up his bad mood that he always has, or objectively just to try to fuck with him. Maybe a little column A, a little column B, but that's somehow going to kill him. I feel like he is either definitely going to die, or he is going to get like caught by the police holding like a bloody knife, either deservedly or undeservedly. He's just not going to make it out of this.
Oh hell no! This dude's
If
raised
it's
so many
him,
boys, it's almost impossible.
It doesn't matter if he did or not. It was deserved.
Because we know he has one weakness. And
Then I
his
think
weakness is
everybody really
scary
did.
things. And I have this odd feeling scary things might happen. You know, like just it's at a baseline at some point.
I want that scary thing to be me.
Wait,
I
only
heard
time can
scary
tell.
things will happen.
Got anything else, or is that it, Mr. Award-winning Noir?
I think that's about it. Read Beaglesaurus, it's better than this.
All
Whoa,
right.
Oh,
alright,
wow.
Bone, go.
Okay, that's quite words there. But anyways, Bone Man.
Alright, so they have mentioned they are in the New World, which talks about prior things, which makes the prior conversation about the moving mansion very interesting. Okay, second thing, Rindy, you go for his knees, I'll go for his fingers. Alright, the next thing.
The shins too. Make sure.
The what? Oh, the shins?
The shins. Yeah. I want you to suffer.
Alright.
Which one's your favorite shin?
What the...
Oh, if I had one PS on this, this is literally definitely America, and there's just literally no way it could not be.
Oh yeah.
So it mentioned her being an immigrant, which makes me wonder how the next stories will go. How many more stories are there? Is that an okay thing to say?
I'm not gonna
We will
tell you.
not be telling you
So it
anything.
makes the next things, the next potential stories interesting. If they will continue to be America, if it will travel into a new area, maybe there'll be a one that takes place in Asia even. Okay. It seems interesting that Maria is on good terms with the parasite in that prior thing. And it does seem like they have prior relations. I wonder what things he is also trying to escape, since it mentions he can never escape. Okay, wait. I found it interesting that the maid, the purple maid, the lesbian maid, is talking about prior events to the white-haired girl, and the white-haired girl cannot seem to remember. It makes me wonder, is the maid a figment of white-haired girl's imagination? I believe other characters have talked to Purple Maid, but I'm not sure how trustworthy that is.
I will put out, I don't think anyone else spoke to the Purple Maid. I think they've referred to that she might be the head maid, but that also could just be misdirection.
Yes, so I'm very interested in that possibility that she is a figment of white-haired girl's imagination. Maybe a figure in her life or prior lives. I found it interesting. There is 8 digits in the white-haired girl's name. That is quite a long name. I'm going to assume that each of those is an accurate digit. And also, it is, who is she waiting for? Her name is pronounced the same as who she's waiting for, said the Purple Maid. I'm very curious who she's waiting for. The maid does say that this white-haired girl will remember someday the prior events of her life. Going down the notes channel. That is my notes.
Got anything else to say?
She looks like a Castlevania character a little. Maybe not. I don't know. She looks like she would be a vampire hunter.
Is it the hair or the dress?
The dress. Mixed with the hair. But mainly the dress with the hair. Go next. I'm done.
Jelly.
Okay, hi. I am audible, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Little quiet.
Okay, how's this? Okay. So, I want to, reiterate what I said earlier about, honestly, I think this guy is worse than Yukimasa. But I will amend that. I will say that Yukimasa, as just this beast who doesn't know what he's doing, is not as bad as Jacopo. I say that because, Yukimasa is just this slasher villain thing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just killing people. Okay, that's horrible, but it's not personal.
What about prior to Beastia?
One thing I will say is that even if that sailor did absolutely nothing wrong, I will say that he at least might have seen some rougher parts of life than White-Haired Girl, so I don't know. But at least very much the beast part of him, it was not nearly as bad as what Jacopo does, because, like I said, a serial killer style thing that just kills people because it can't think for itself other than it thinks it's a beast is not as powerful as domestic abuse. I'm lucky to have had parents who have had a very loving relationship with each other, but I know people who had to deal with that, and that hurts me on a personal level.
Wait, sorry, but could you go into what about on the ship? The Yamakusa on the ship that was smiling when torturing people.
Yeah, see, well, what I said is that I'm just discounting that. I'm talking about him when he was actually murdering people. I guess he killed that guy too.
Dude, he was bathing in people's blood. He was very, very he was very aware of his actions and what he was doing.
He literally murdered a pregnant woman and mocked her while doing so.
He did a lot of these things very, very deliberately. I think he could think for himself.
Teaching him to speak was a mistake.
Yeah, but that's just a fucking monster. It's not.
No, yeah, but that's who he is. He was always like that.
Wait,
he's always been like that.
And also, even when he was torturing the guy, he was again, a cartoon villain in the way that he was just so over the top you can't even understand him at all. But this guy,
Jacopo did just shout at his wife for wearing perfume and accused her of leaving the house.
Yeah, but he didn't kill her.
He's more
I think death is objectively worse than being abusive.
Let me get this correct. Is the discussion are we having is abuse worse than murder? Is that the conversation?
I'm
Second
saying
half
that
is murder, then
no,
abuse.
that's not what I'm saying. Can I say something? What I'm saying is that abuse is a lot more like horrifically relatable than a beast murdering people who doesn't even know what he's doing.
May I try to say an interpretation of this? So you're saying narratively it's worse.
Yeah, I mean, the beast did worse things, obviously, but I can't relate to that because it's just a monster doing things. Like,
Okay, from a narrative perspective, you feel it's worse.
yeah.
Okay. Hello, new viewer, Zombie Man Guy. Sup to you.
Hey, dude,
Just,
what's poppin'? Thanks for popping by.
Hello.
Hope you continue supporting the channel. We appreciate that.
You are on the discussion part. We have just gone through a chapter.
Hello, welcome,
there.
new person. Hello. And yeah, just to finish off, yeah, I do personally think, like, I would think that even if, like, you know, Jason Voorhees kills people, I think a drama about, like, a domestic abuser is a lot more relatably horrific. Like, it's just something that I think is worse as a character in fiction, because, I mean, none of this is real life.
Okay, yeah, I get it now. Just the way you phrased it prior made you think that you were actually talking about on the morality scale.
Ooh, this is a conversation.
Well, I'm done. So.
Joshy, go! Guys are like, man, I love this funny little Italian man over here. Comment, man, what an asshole. Kind of a piece of shit. I don't condone violence, but I wouldn't feel sorry if this man ended up accidentally catching a right hook. I'm just saying, like a good old punch.
Pardon me for interrupting, but would you say you would like to enact a violence on him?
Personally, no, he's not worth it. But
I think he's got a train to catch.
Personally for me, he's just kind of a piece of shit. He hasn't done anything horrific yet. Like just an asshole, but nothing horrific yet.
He did kind of destroy her entire rose garden just to be a douche.
Yeah, again, being a dick and horrific.
He hasn't caused an atrocity.
Yes.
I have some sassy takes that I can't say because I have to be an observer, so I'm just gonna be quiet.
That's fair.
He might have some shit in his background, which... Okay. That being stated, moving on from that, I did find it a little bit weird, and Bone kind of pointed this out, where it felt like this chapter, and then... Well, actually, that's not true. So, like, it feels like only really, like, one individual, like, talks to the maid that isn't the, who isn't the main character. Like, door 1, Mel talked to the maid, right? And then in door 2, Beastia talked to the maid. And then in door 3, it's been exclusively the white-haired woman that's talked to her, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jacopo started to have a conversation with this maid. So it's usually been the white-haired girl in each three of these doors, and then like the main central character that talked to them. So far, at least. I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was a little bit interesting. I don't know if it matters in the long scheme of things. Maybe just a fun little trivia. I don't know. As in terms of this kind of just sets in the fact that I really think that either this... Well, it's something that the maid said where she was like, you were like not wholly a different what was it the line? Distinct person? So... maybe perhaps that she is... Yeah, I'll let actually Rindy point that out. But, what is it? When it comes to, like, it feels like she almost doesn't exist in the stories, is more or less kind of just, like, watching them go and doesn't really... I won't say doesn't really do anything, but, like, it's a lot more of an observant point.
Whoa, Robert.
What the fuck?
That being stated, pretty good. Can't wait to find out that Jacopo is actually very sympathetic, and how he is, he has some shit in his background too, which, doesn't justify what he did, but, maybe we'll have a little bit lenience on why he may be an asshole. Also, shout out to Mary.
Yeah,
Maria?
she's based.
Your name's Maria! Maria!
Shout out to Maria.
Both of them.
Yes,
Sure.
the white-haired girl deserves so much, especially.
Oh, why do you insist on referring to yourself as a holy virgin? Weird.
What? She's a quirky woman.
If it's funny.
Very quirky.
Strange.
Anyways, that's all I have to say.
I feel like that might be some form of pun.
May
I mean, it is.
May I
but
make a
still.
quick question? Do we have Requiem for Innocence on the docket?
Absolutely. Why are you asking about that?
Zombie Man guy just mentioned that they started Requiem for Innocence.
Very
Okay.
good. Yes, it is on the docket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't worry. All this stuff is on the docket. We got like the whole collection. I'm even gonna go back to the PC version occasionally so we can do the post script stuff because that's fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we're going through all of this stuff. So if you want to see it,
I could hear the
check us
panic
out.
in Bee's voice.
What do you mean? As she put down the rock casually.
Ooh.
What's
Yeah,
the
the vast
rock-
majority of us have not read through Fata. I
It's-
mean, minus myself,
He's
B,
always
and
cooking.
another third observer. But pretty much everybody else doesn't know anything about Fata.
The Rock is to bash out any potential memory of spoilers that I may have discovered, which I did not. I discovered no spoilers.
But won't that also affect their hippocampus?
No.
Don't worry, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. It's just a hospital visit.
It's a surgical rock. Next person.
Yes, Robo, go.
I have a feeling that Jacopo's not gonna get the chance to redeem himself. Either that or his redemption's gonna get fucking denied.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say.
Khan, what's up?
To be honest, everyone else has already said everything about everything else right now. All I will also say is, I absolutely love Maria. She's literally just me, but with short blonde hair. Even all down to the scary storytelling. That is genuinely something I do just to fuck with somebody.
And the finger licking.
You gay?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said this before.
I didn't know that, but not great. Good to know now. I was just joking around.
Okay.
When the joke
Lore unlocked.
Okay then, finger
I don't know why you're making
good.
this honored. I've said way worse. Is there more?
Rindy!
Moving
What's going
on.
on with you?
Okay. Shout out they were Madam and Maid. What do I want to say? I want something literally a month ago. Okay, yeah, okay. So, about Jacopo. He's a bitch and he deserves to get hit. But so far, his actual actions towards the white-haired girl weren't that bad. They were just implied it would be bad. But so far, he yelled at her, which is a bitch move. He ripped out the roses, which is a bitch move. But they didn't do anything that extreme. Besides that,
Oh yeah, don't mind the emotional.
he's not.
emotional
As of
trauma.
yet, what emotional trauma?
Oh my fucking god.
Back it up.
He's I don't know if I would describe it as abusive.
He
I
did
don't know.
openly state that she's not allowed to leave the house.
I don't think that's that unusual for that time period.
I feel. I don't know. This is the 1800s. Like women.
But when he was
You need to
tearing
understand,
down
like-
the rose garden, he literally told her like, "You need to stay inside more often.
and this is
Stop
like-
standing in
But
the sun."
the way he says that, it's not like a command. It's more like he's being a passive aggressive bitch more than actual abuse. So yeah, he's a massive fucking bitch, but he's not irredeemable as far as I'm concerned. Far from it. So yeah, definitely deserves to get beat up, but I don't think he's done anything that bad yet.
Why are you trying to defend him?
I'm not trying to defend him.
No,
Which part of this sounds like defense?
I get
They
what
are
Randy's
not
saying.
defending
It's
him.
like she's not defending him.
Okay, good.
Robert, how could you consider that defending when she said he deserve to be beat up though? Like,
Word.
I mean, I can see how Robert thought that.
Randy is saying that he is not above, like he's not irredeemable at the moment.
He can have a
like if he 180s on treating his wife, fine, whatever, forgiven, I guess.
He's not. He has yet to do an absolutely god awful action that deserves. That's not like that you can't come back from.
I fully expect him to.
Yeah, maybe he will.
I think
he will.
after
It's
the
not like he's
Bethia
locked her
thing,
in
I
the
expect
basement and chained her up and started putting a whip on her back, going pinata, pinata, pinata.
I doubt he's gonna do that.
I think
No,
he's
that
going
was just
to,
from my brain.
I think he's going to get worse. I think he will get worse. The way the last story went, I think he's gonna get worse.
We'll see. I also presume that, but I presumed stuff in the past and they ended up being incorrect. So,
Also, this is
still
a
hot
manga?
though. Not unsurprising.
There is a
of viewers had
manga. I have not had a chance to read it in its entirety, and from it I can't tell if it does follow the VN to a degree, but there's a lot of changes to it, and I can't tell if it's one of the ones where it's like different in order for you to read the VN, or like it just does things in its own different manner.
That manga Jacopo is way too pretty, my god.
It's on
About the name.
session.
So the maid said like the white-haired girl shares her name with the person she's waiting for, and she didn't say that. She said it's pronounced the same, which actually leads me to believe it might actually be Michelle, because Michelle is a unisex name that's pronounced differently for both genders. It has like another L and an E at the end.
Can you spell it with 8 letters?
What?
The amount of X's for her name was 8.
Oh yeah, Michelle is 8 letters. But I don't know necessarily because it's a bit much to rely on, but it might be, yes.
But the Michelle we have is 6 letters.
Yeah, but the girl
but
version of
it
Michelle
does-
is
but it
8
is
letters.
the same what? Yeah.
If I could
same name.
interject rather quickly, we're going to like hit for like what's the most content, and we're gonna kind of try to just like streamline it to what would be considered the quote unquote correct pathway.
Oh, you're trying to Zongman guy?
Yes. Anyways, continue.
It's strange, like the way the maid talked in this one. Like, if only I could prevent this from happening. It implies like she before she appeared to be sort of more omniscient. Like she appeared to Mel at his time of need, in the middle of nowhere. Like she knew he would be there chasing the white-haired girl, and stuff like that. And she could like basically disappear and reappear at will with Bestia. But now she couldn't even like talk to Jacopo or to the white-haired girls to like delay them from meeting and maybe warning them. But that's a bit strange. Other than that, like you should be powerless. I think that's about it for my thoughts.
Okay. Sim, what's up with you?
Not much. The rose garden is back, and the white rose, which is interesting. I'm not sure what that's supposed to represent quite yet. The mansion is almost definitely moving. Other than that, the only thing I have to say is I disagree with Randy. This man is absolutely an emotional abuser.
I think he's just a bad husband. A really bad husband.
We will agree to disagree until we see further, I say.
Moving on.
You know, like I also say it was sort of manic rather than I don't know.
We'll agree to disagree.
Other than that, I guess white-haired girl and Maria, very good friends. Very close friends.
You're allowed to see
They
that.
were roommates.
Girls
in
being
another
girls.
life they
Let's
might
see
have
that.
been
Friendship.
roommates.
The strongest homies.
Yeah, I don't
My
really,
God, they
I don't
were
really have anything
roommates. All right, cool.
God.
Crimson, you got any lingering thoughts?
I kind of think that Jacopo is probably having something in his past that's probably going to creep up against him because the way he acts and the way he's being weirdly possessive and of his wife kind of makes me fear that he's kind of going to go nuts after something from his investment or something in the past that's going to come back to bite him in his ass. That's the reason why he's acting so sporadically in his thoughts and his actions. Even though he's kind of a douche, I kind of think he's kind of doing it out of unnecessary fear. Kind of like reflecting his own pain and suffering onto another person by his own inability to express it normally. That tends to happen with some people like that. Also, the mansion is definitely moving. It's kind of weird how it's moving. It sort of just appears in one area. No one knows about it, just as mysterious. Like, no one knows where exactly it comes from. Also, I believe the white-haired girl is actually a reincarnation of one particular spirit through multiple generations. And the maid is trying to make her remember her past lives. Because different parents and different lineage over a period of time doesn't make any sense unless she's a reincarnation of the same spirit. And Michelle has something to do with it. And it's connected to this particular mansion itself. And the maid is trying to help her reunite with Michelle in some way because it might have been like some past love that's being cursed by Michelle's curse.
That actually gives me an idea for whenever Crimson is done.
I only had one other question.
Can I finish my thoughts before you can do your thought? Okay. So, sorry, I had a phone call. Overall, I think the story might turn into an interesting sort of, it's gonna go horribly wrong for an unexpected way. That's my thoughts.
Alright, so Con, you do your question, I'll do my thought.
Okay. My question was, do we have any new artwork this go around?
We
Or is that a no?
do. We do have some new artwork. Of course we do. Yes.
Is that
time
for
to
later
show off.
or is that now?
No, it's for right now, baby. Let's go.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll say the thing. So the idea of what Crimson said, it makes me wonder: is the maid following the white-haired girl, or is fate bringing them together?
I think at last session, I think the maid is like bound to the house, and the white-haired girl like is bound to like find her way to the house every time. The maid just stays there. Like it was said, she like stayed at the house like even when it was deteriorating with no master for a while before Bestia.
B's art jump scared me.
The white-haired girl keeps like getting like unnaturally like I don't attracted, but not in like the romantic or sexual sense. She gets attracted to the master of the house every time.
For the commission stuff? As it stands right now, I think we have art of all the major characters as we need to.
One second,
if we do need more art in the future.
From the other room. I have to go check on my nephew. One moment.
Wait, but your art's about to show up!
She'll grab it later.
Forget your nephew!
Don't worry.
She can grab it later.
We'll probably have more need for art stuff in the future.
Yes, make them kiss. Slap them together. Bash their boobs together.
Mm.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wait,
one more thing I forgot to add. You know, they mentioned about the whole, stained glass window of an angel. It was broken, but when Michelle was, when we first saw him, the thing was intact, so it has to take place in the past.
Well, I think that took place before those events.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear.
Art's on the stream.
It's on the Twitch.
Okay, I'm back in.
Oh, thank God.
Your art's up, Con.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that like the thing we saw with Michelle like takes place first chronologically, and likely I assume Giselle is the maid, would be the white-haired girl. It Yeah, no, Giselle is 7 letters, but I don't think that the amount of letters is necessarily proof or anything like that or relevant. It might just be a random amount of X's.
Is that all
I will
our
say if you're
thoughts?
looking for commissions, I might actually. I might want to get my FF14 thing commissioned. Oh no, Clinical Obsession was asking in the chat if we're looking for more art for the stream stuff, and like, I think we're pretty. We've hit a lot on the main characters.
But like for future stuff,
we got Rose Gun Days
nah,
coming up in the future. There's also Steins Gate. I'm going to get my
Gun
FF14
Days.
character commissioned.
Listen, my people, aka me, will get in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
B, I'm going to DM something real
I've
quick.
never seen my OC look this cute before.
You have an OC?
Nice.
Yeah, that's my character right there.
Oh, I didn't know you had an
Are you
OC.
asking if Kaneko Ryugamine has a OC?
Like
Yeah,
her,
there's
like
your
her profile
character, if
picture
you wanna
for
use
like
it as
the
a
last
profile
year
picture.
has just been the rabbit from the Sam and Max Sam.
His name is Max.
Max, with the Beatrice hair and dress.
Remember, B commissioned all of this art, so say thank you, B, whenever you get your art.
Thank you, B.
So much.
Thank you, mother.
He spent like $50.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
A lot
Yes,
of
it is a
damage.
very
A lot of
huge amount of money.
Cheddar.
I'm never saying that again.
All right.
Holler,
so
holler,
is that
get
all
dollar.
thoughts?
$1.
Orange, where can they follow on Discord and Twitter for more Golden Theater content?
Yes, if you want to see more of our funny little content, sorry for the shelling bit. If you want to leave, go ahead.
No, don't tell him to leave.
I'm kidding. Maybe I'm not.
Advertise us.
Nobody wants to hear random people trying to be influencers online to go watch more of their shit. Anyways, but if you do, yes, go to BJiki's Twitter. There's zero range _ boy. The O is a 0. Never forget that. So it's Orange Boy. But yeah, I know it's also my Twitter. And then of
Follow
course,
me on Twitter too.
yeah, follow Rindy on Twitter.
Don't actually say what it is. Don't actually say what the handle is.
Just like go through my mutuals list and just follow everybody on that page.
There you go.
And then I don't know. There's the YouTube for the stuff,
Wait, don't
etc.
follow
etc. Joshi has a YouTube channel as well, Digital Joshua, where he puts it. No, it's not Digital Joshua. It's Digital Joshi. He does Let's Play stuff too, etc. etc.
Also my Twitch as well.
Twitch as well, yes. All right, but yeah, that's enough. That's enough shilling for one session. We'll do more of that later.
You can follow us on Discord from the link below.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you wanna, and hey, if you already know what's going on in Fata, and you wanna have candid reactions to stuff going on, then get in here. All right. See y'all later. Bye bye.
All right, bye. Get out of here. Get out.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Go do something else.